Hello again. It's been a bit longer than I intended, but hopefully for good reason. There's been an awful lot going on this month as I look ahead to some things that will be happening over the fall. I had intended to go back to my day job full-time, but I've received a few really interesting opportunities that, while not directly related to the opera, will see me writing music pretty heavily throughout September and parts of October. But first, some words about the current state of the opera. We're getting to the end of the initial sponsorship period that I talked about back in the first video, and while not everything has quite gone as planned, I think we are in a really good place. Apart from some transitional material between scenes 1 and 2, the first act is pretty much complete, and we're making our first forays into the second. Right now we're hearing music from the final scene of Act 1. I've hinted many times that while this opera deals with the relationship between a soprano and a tenor, it does not contain a conventional love story, and this scene exemplifies that aspect of the plot. After completing this final scene of Act 1, I went back and composed the opening scene, which is an extended monologue from our main character, Lucy. As the opera begins, she's frantically pointing out objects in her environment, counting intervals of time, and highlighting the disarray in the dreary world around her as she wonders why she hasn't been able to conceive. Scene 3, where she and Tom are returning from the doctor's office, continues the theme. They're walking through the city, counting the same number of gray doorways on each city block. The world is cold and stark and matter-of-fact. Their lives are planned and preordained, just like their neighborhoods. But in this final scene of Act 1, we see something very small and subtle, a step toward the characters rediscovering their humanity in this dreary mechanized environment. As Lucy finishes her book aria, one of the only moments of true joy in the entire first act, the lights in the house cut out, as they do every night, to save power. Lucy and Tom retreat separately to their beds, Lucy continuing to examine her book, Tom off stage, unable to rest. They sing very little, again simply naming objects in their environment, observing the darkness around them, and hiding from the constant cold that permeates the first act. It's Lucy, reflecting on the phrase, "a little more than strangers, a little less than friends," who leaves her room and knocks hesitantly on Tom's door. And in this very simple, sincere moment, they lay down together and are finally able to sleep. The scene is devoid of sexual tension or even the implication of romance, but it does become a tiny moment of community and of finding a hint of human connection in a joyless world. I knew I had to write my gentlest, subtlest music for this, with really simple melodies and crystalline chords that sound like frost on windows. And as we'll hear, the strings get the very last word, echoing the melodies we've heard from our characters as they discover this beautiful little moment. So, the curtain closes on Act 1, and we're left with the question, as our characters start to reclaim their humanity, what happens next? Well, the picture that Emilie posted a few weeks ago provides a hint. At the top of Act 2, the lights come up on the doctor's office once more, and to paraphrase Tom in Scene 3, the cracks in the endless symmetry start to appear. Then what's next for the project? Well, as I said, we're getting to the end of the sponsorship period, but the writing process will continue, albeit a bit more slowly, as Emilie and I both have to focus on other things for a while. I'll be writing music for 2 different plays this month, as well as taking some other opportunities that I'm really excited about. We've already started to tackle Act 2, however. I've composed the opening scene in the doctor's office, and I'm currently working on an aria for Tom that immediately follows it. The second act is shaping up to be much more focused on narrative than exposition, and will be a bit more complex, with each scene being composed of lots of shorter segments that run into each other. While I think we've reached the emotional heart of the opera with the end of Act 1, the narrative high point of the opera occurs around the middle of Act 2, and I'm really excited to be finally building up to that. So, again, I'd like to thank the anonymous sponsors that have made the last few months possible, and also the wonderful people who backed us on Indiegogo last year. I will be sending out some thank you cards and other stuff over the next few weeks. I sat down in front of my family a few weeks ago and sang through the whole of Act 1, and I'm really happy with what I've been able to do so far. I've finally been able to concentrate and focus and put together a really solid, unified work. I'd really like to keep this kind of momentum going and continue to work on building an active social media presence as I write, so that you, the viewer, can share a bit in the process of putting this kind of piece together. One of the ways I'd like to do that is by starting a new crowdfunding initiative with Patreon, which should get going in early September. So if you like what we're doing, please watch for that, take a look, and share it around if you possibly can. It's a relatively new way to show your support to artists and content creators on an ongoing basis. And even though the medium I'm working in isn't super immediate, I know there are a lot of people who want to see this project continue. And at the end of the day, every $11 that goes into that platform represents one more hour that I can spend bringing you rad, honest-to-goodness, 21st century feminist science fiction opera. So, from here on out, we will be carefully moving forward with Act 2, heading into new realms that involve windmills and playing in several keys at once. Until next time, thanks for watching.